The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only.
Taking care of plenty of business fantastically out of groovy sight. We're about ready to have a party.
Welcome to another episode of that Gopher Hockey Podcast. This is episode number 27. Today's episode is brought to you by news breaking the day after we record. I don't know.
Could we go for the turkey?
Yeah, I don't know what it will be this week, but you know what? Find out.
Right.
2 weeks ago, it was Don Lucia stepping down. Last week, it was the Gophers naming Bob Motzko the new head coach. We'll find out what it is this week. I am joined, as always, by Drew Cove of the Minnesota Daily.
Hello there.
Tom Schreier of the Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
I've already been slandered, but let's go on.
Yes, in our long pre-production meeting.
My replacement is here.
And we have a guest today, an old friend.
Very familiar guest.
Familiar guest. We did
Intern
a podcast.
Producer.
Yeah. we did a podcast together last year.
Yeah.
This is Declan Goff, Minnesota Hockey Magazine.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back on. Second time. This is great.
The reunion part 2.
Yeah, reunion part 2. Schreier is already feeling my presence and is very upset.
Oh, you're searing in my
Tom's
soul.
getting very territorial over his board over here.
Yeah.
My little boy, this is a significant board.
I've already had a
Looks like
cup of
the size of my
coffee
laptop.
with the Board of Regents at Zone Coverage, and the interim owner phase is coming right on. We're going to buy you out and everything.
You're Motzko, I'm Lucia. I'm on my way out.
Double that pay. I'll just jump right down 94 and say hello.
We are not too far in, and we are hearing the
Unbelievable.
He's sitting back in his chair, like clenching his fist, cracking his knuckles.
Trying to stay calm, but yeah.
So Declan, a St. Cloud State alum, give us your full in-depth thoughts.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised actually no one looked back at the tweet, because I put out a tweet, maybe it had to be in February or January when this speculation first kind of really started to ramp up. And I was like, there is no chance in hell that Bob Motzko leaves St. Cloud. That's like someone taking the red carpet and just lifting it up and throwing it away. Like they're stapled, they're connected to one another. And then I kind of watched that Air Force game unfold. I kind of came to the realization that, you know what, this is the second time in 3 years that he's been bounced with one and dones, and he's had even more talented teams, in my opinion, than this team that was ranked number 1 throughout the tournament. So the wheels started going in motion that, oh, crap, he's going to take this job, isn't he? It was one of the first thoughts.
I even said on the podcast,
after they
though,
lost.
As someone who's pretty much impartial, right? I was just I think he just uses this to get a raise. And I wonder if St. Cloud maybe just didn't want to give him that much money. They're at a different place than the Gophers are. But I also just don't know why. There's no escape in there, right? He's going to a place that's more pressure packed, and it's not like he couldn't recruit to St. Cloud.
Yeah, I'm actually and don't quote me, but I think I maybe read a few years ago, Bob Motzko was one of the highest paid persons in the MinSCU. Now it's no longer MinSCU, but that system of colleges in Minnesota, the highest paid employee. So
and they would have to double his money.
And he was making good money. But, yeah, I mean, I guess, and a lot of my friends said, well, money talks. My brother was he could leave this program he's coaching USA. It's not like he's so rooted to St. Cloud that, he never steps out of the boundaries. But I still was shocked when the news happened. And judging, by the local reports up there, the players were pretty, I got the impression that the players were obviously pretty pissed and upset. Obviously upset a lot of alumni. It's just crazy. It's going to be weird seeing the Bob pose, glasses on the nose, hand on the glass, and in maroon and gold colors and on that side.
I had driving in here to record this. I go past the University of Minnesota and you go TCF, and they had on the side of the building just one of those, or just on the little scoreboard. They also have the weather and everything.
Ad banner.
Yeah, the ad banner. It was so welcome back, Coach Motzko, and the maroon and gold and everything. And you're just whoa, that doesn't.
I know
that doesn't add up. But that's the case. For anyone who missed it, we kind of skimmed a little bit on it. Bob Motzko is the new head coach of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. He signed a 5-year contract. He went from Vals to Als. He Went from the red and black of St. Cloud State to the Hollywood.
Are you just like trying
town.
to stomp in my heart right now?
I love.
I was just trying
he's
to.
a good writer that he can come up with that. But you're killing
You
Declan.
joining the college hockey New World Order if you want to. I always kind of thought of just while kind of seeing this go down, like and back in my head, I feel like you might enjoy this, Declan, as a wrestling fan.
Yes.
Just having like the just Jim Rich or calling it just like the Bash of the Beat, the Hulk Hogan NWO turn, just be like, no, it's like oh, there's Motzko, he's here to save everybody, and like no.
Yeah. I was shocked. I was honestly shocked. I like I said, I started dot the T's or crossing X's, dotting T's, whatever. I can't even speak right now. But I was like, oh crap. I think it does make more sense than I thought maybe 6 weeks ago. But I was still shocked that he left St. Cloud after kind of building it up, and especially what he's done over the last decade. But I
So my
money
question,
talks.
my question to you, because I kind of brought this up on the podcast with these guys. I think what Motzko proved is that you can recruit to St. Cloud State, that you don't have to be a Big Ten team in order to get the guys that he's getting there. He's hit phenomenally talented players who become at least locally famous, right, in the high school hockey tournament. Do you think someone with his attitude and his effort, right, who's willing to kind of sit around the ranks and build these relationships and stuff, can do what he did, and that you don't need to go get a big name in order to have success again at St. Cloud?
Yeah, I mean, I think his bread and butter is what we've always known is he can recruit, right? I mean, Bob, even at the U of M, I mean, he got Thomas Vanek, played a part in getting Thomas Vanek here.
He coached them in juniors too.
Yeah, coached him in juniors, coached him in Sioux Falls. So, I mean, he can definitely recruit. Does that mean like the prize possessions now like are more attractive to U of M? I don't know. And I think the entire recruiting landscape has obviously been a complete 180 what it was 5 years ago compared to 10 years ago. But I think just in general, I think it helps with like a high school. Let's say I am a 16-year-old stud at Blaine, which I'm glad I never was. But if I was, and I saw there was a change of scenery at the U of M.
If you were and your last name was Brodzinski.
Yeah, right. I would be definitely more inclined than I was with Lucier. I think that's clear. I think they needed a change not because of the culture, but because of the perception, and that's a little bit unfortunate for Don's sake. But I think obviously it needed to happen, and everyone kind of saw that writing on the wall happening towards the end of the season.
Isn't there a Motzko method, though? It seems like he goes and gets guys who are 15, 16. He probably has... No?
No.
I don't think so.
I mean, I thought...
That's actually one of the things... that more than anyone of like the perennial contenders, I guess you want to say, and one of the things that Motzko's done a great job building up is, with only a couple exceptions, Ryan Paling's one, there's a couple other ones... he doesn't go. He's not a huge early recruiter and part of that is kind of just St. Cloud being the way it is. But like, I mean, it's like he doesn't get a lot of those 15, 16-year-olds in the way that Duluth does and Minnesota does and many of like the Big Ten schools. One of the things I'm really curious to see what happens now that he's taken over Minnesota, how that changes if it changes at all. But like a guy like Will Borgen didn't commit until his senior year of high school. A guy like Mikey Eisenman took some time. I think like I'm really trying to think I think maybe other than like the youngest Brodzinski, I don't think anyone's really and maybe Easton was like a 16-year-old or so as well. Sure. But there's not too many of those guys that come in and commit. He's done a lot. He's done a great job again, finding those diamonds in the rough.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So that's what I misquoted the ages, but that's what I was getting at. That he's getting a little bit older players at St. Cloud, where there may be pressure for him actually at Minnesota to go get the best players when they're younger. My point is from St. Cloud's perspective, doesn't the coach who's going in there kind of have an idea of what to do to recruit? Like, hey, let's go get guys. Sorry, not 15, 16, but 17, 18 maybe.
Yeah, or there's definitely a target, type of player, age group. A lot of factors definitely go into it. It's just. What I'm curious about is, Motzko kind of had a tendency at St. Cloud toward captaincy and award leaders to more of a grinder kind of player. Not always. I mean, yeah, Drew LeBlanc was great, Nick Dowd was great, but I mean, Nick Oliver was a fourth-line player for 4 years. Judd Peterson, same kind of thing. I mean, he doesn't necessarily put his leadership in the top players. He puts them in, I think, what he thinks is the right players. So I think that's kind of interesting to see. I mean, I don't expect him to go and strip the C off of Tyler Sheehy before the season starts or anything, but it's interesting to see how he kind of changes that attitude. And, he obviously naturally probably has to embrace, the Sky U Ma and the Pride on Ice philosophies for a marketing standpoint. But it's interesting to see if he can like reshape that and, for the lack of a better words, make Gopher hockey fun again. Like I that's what I'm curious to see what he does, because he did that at St. Cloud. I mean, he got the right players and he made St. Cloud relevant on a national scale for the majority of this decade, which something that probably wasn't necessarily plausible when he first took the job.
Drew, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Minnesota hiring Motzko?
I think it's a hire that I think will keep them at pace to where they were, but something that, I mean, if you look at his track record in the postseason, is something that, especially just lately, is something that Minnesota fans are probably going to be concerned with. Especially even what Mark Coyle said. I think he said sometime last year that he said, the conference championships are nice, but postseason success is really the next step, and to get back into that like Don was doing back in the early 2000s, and that hadn't really happened lately. But I don't, with Bob's track record of only making it to the Frozen Four out of his I guess now 8 appearances. I think it was
Something
8 after
like that,
this one. It was 7 and then 8 this year after losing in probably the biggest upset of them all at that point, being number 1, losing to the out of the top 16 pairwise team in the tournament. But it's kind of it's a little glaring to see it. Will that change at Minnesota? Nobody really knows, because he's had that regular season success just like Lucia has, and I think Lucia's team had been to the Frozen Four more recently than St. Cloud. Is that it happened in 2012 or 13?
They were there in 2013.
Yeah, 2013, and then Minnesota was there last year in 2014. Yes. So unless something changes with the players or his coaching in that respect to get that postseason success, I don't know how much exactly changes, but I don't think with a lot of guys that were out there they could have done. They could have gotten a guy who's won who's gotten to the Frozen Four every single year he's been into. It's hard to find because that parity is there. So it's not really an indictment. It's not meant to be anything on Bob Motzko. It's just hard to have the success in the postseason, especially lately in the college hockey world, as it was in the past when it was. I mean, like I think we've mentioned it on this podcast a lot of times before, is that the traditional Blue Bloods, when they were winning it every other year, and Minnesota was in the Frozen Four every other year, or North Dakota or BC or BU, that kind of thing. Those times have changed a little bit, especially when Minnesota as a state has 5 really competitive programs.
And that's one of the things when I was talking to Motzko during the regional when they lost to Air Force as the number 1 overall seed. I don't think that loss was as bad as the one to Ferris State a couple of years before that.
Yeah, I think you can make a serious
that was
case.
A 250. That loss, one they played a lot worse, and 2 Ferris State was like way further down in the pairwise.
Yeah.
But if you're just going to start off the way you're saying it,
right,
the 1 versus 16 sounds a little bit worse.
And like I said, I think there has been more talented teams than this one that was unanimously number 1 in the tournament, and for a good portion of the year. I mean, that team that lost to Ferris, I think hands down is better than the St. Cloud team that lost to Air Force. I think top to bottom, it's not. In my opinion, I don't think it's close.
I honestly, I thought St. Cloud played a much better game against Air Force in that. They continued to control play for about the entire final 30 minutes. And ran into a hot goalie, and that's one of the unfortunate parts of playing a single game elimination tournament. But no, talking to Motzko after that, he was just like, anyone surprised this happens? No. Anyone surprised that Notre Dame and Michigan Tech went to overtime? There's the margin between being a Frozen Four team and being St. Cloud State losing the first round is very thin. I mean, we're going to talk Frozen Four later in the show. Notre Dame was a broken stick and about this much away from being out in the first round. Minnesota Duluth made the tournament, made the Frozen Four. They needed 6 games to go right, and a Minnesota State player to be kind of in the goal to block a shot to get around that and being first round.
It's weird to think that, when you see the one and dones from the Air Force loss and the Ferris State loss, but then when you go back to other regionals in this decade, the team that made it to the Frozen Four, it was a deep, talented team, but maybe not as talented as these 2 out of 3 ones. Their 2015 when they lost North Dakota at the regional final, that team also barely got into the tournament and then made a run. So, kind of going back to what Drew was saying with the fans probably harping on the postseason success, that's probably going to be a factor. And it's clear that, I don't know, it just seems like the more talented the team is on paper, like the bigger the fall has happened with St. Cloud. During the Motzko years. So it's going to be tough. Big Ten, we already know it. Big Ten critics will, complain if they were hung with a new rope. I mean, they're going to complain every single chance they get. But it'll be interesting to see if Motzko can kind of snap that, not just for not even for the fan side, but probably for his side too, because I'm sure he's sick of being one and done with some pretty talented groups.
All right, I have one question, not necessarily related to on the ice performance, but you've seen, obviously, being up at St. Cloud, what Bob has brought to the program, I guess, sort of those intangibles, that presence off the ice, the presence in the, I guess, just socially. Mm-hmm. And you've been around, obviously, with Don Lucia as well of late. What do you think he brings to the table in terms of an off-the-ice sort of marketing standpoint and just, I guess, promoting the program?
Yeah.
What do you think he does differently?
It's actually a good question, because I think I was listening to a local radio station, and they were talking about, well, he's going to get more publicity down here. He's going to be in more TV games. And I kind of was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I don't think he's going to be on any more TV games than he was up in St. Cloud. I mean, Husky Productions does every home game. They're on FSN occasionally, so it's like Bob is definitely used to being in front of the camera. So it's not like obviously it'll be naturally more peppered in with being in Minneapolis, but he's used to dealing with the media, and I think that's going to be just fine. I don't think that transition will be tough from St. Cloud to here. That's going to be, I think, pretty flawless. But in terms of, I think, what he brings, to questions and stuff, I mean, he's a lot like Lucia. He'll answer your question before you even finish your asking it, and then he'll just go on in a completely different rant from where the question started. And
I had during the press conference, or I forget who it was, like the second question asked. I think it's Jess Myers maybe asked
probably
it.
Jess.
And Motzko goes, "I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to go on a complete tangent first." I just tweet out, for those playing at home, Bob Motzko's made his first tangent as Gopher head coach.
He's very much like Don, I think, in that way. And I would say Motzko probably has more of a tendency to call out a bad question than Lucia did. I think Lucia did a good job of tipping around and not embarrassing a said reporter trying to ask a question, where Bob has done that to me, and he will do that to someone else.
I might have been glad last year, this year, that Bob might not have been around.
I've had a couple times when interviewing him where, like, I'll ask a question that may either he was not a fan of, or I could have phrased it a little better.
Yes.
And then afterwards, he'll go and ask and we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So that's Bob.
Yeah.
So that's just that's going to be him. I think he'll be. It's just weird. It just blows my mind that Wednesdays next season, and I didn't cover the Gophers this year. That's going to be Bob Motzko every Wednesday now. Like, I'm going to get an email from Brian Deutsch or whoever it is going to tell me, hey, Wednesday availability at 2:45 in the auxiliary locker room, Bob Motzko, and I'm just going to be, that is just the words on the paper is like, man, that's going to be weird. I mean, I'm going to have to show up just to sit there and watch it, not even ask anything, so it's like, this is going to be a different situation just from a St. Cloud side. But I think he'll fit in well with the media here. He's used to that, even though St. Cloud's a much smaller market. That won't be a problem, in my opinion. With the more reporters that are here.
In terms of like the pink suit that he wore this year, that bright pink suit, I mean, is that Bob, or is that somebody telling him to wear the pink suit? I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure it was for Breast Cancer Awareness Month,
something
and he
like
wore that. But is that him? Is that somebody? Does he like to get out and do that extra kind of thing and put himself out there a lot?
I think he did a really good job of always making it to the coaches show. I mean, the ones that were in St. Cloud, same thing. There was a coach's show, and he'd be there. He was there right after Ferris State. He was there after North Dakota in 2015. He was not there for Air Force, but
yes, we better bring that up. Better bring it up the same way during. So I had during again the regional. Jimmy Schultz was talking about upsets and how you avoid upsets as the number one team, and he named about 3 of them without naming Ferris State. And Bob Motzko goes, and also St. Cloud against Ferris State.
Yeah.
Which I was like, thank you, because otherwise I'm going to have to follow up, and this is going to be kind of confrontational. I didn't want to do it,
right.
But I would have anyways.
Yeah, I don't think Bob, I think it's a little bit of push and pull. I think it's having a good marketing director and a good trust in your SIDs and all that stuff that encourage a coach to, hey, you're going to put on this pink suit, or, hey, we're going to do a little bit more marketing, hanging out with kids and whatnot. St. Cloud did a pretty good job of that. So I think that's also probably another easier transition. But like you said, now that you're at the U of M and these things are naturally just more magnified, could there be some things that maybe he didn't do at St. Cloud that he's not comfortable doing in Minneapolis? I guess that's probably time will tell. But I think Bob is easy enough to be persuaded into doing something good for the marketing. I mean, when he did the Husky production stuff, that's a student-run production, and students are asking the questions, and he obliged to all those questions, whether they asked poorly or not. He knew he was on TV, and he knew he had to give a good answer. So I think that helps that he's already been used to that. And, the pink suits, I'm interested to see if he relives it again.
Yeah.
But I think, the U of M obviously wanted someone that was willing to do more off-the-ice things, right? That was definitely, I think, also a big factor. So I think Bob will have no problem transitioning into it.
I think that's certainly something that's going to be very important for the new coach is, whoever is going to be the coach, and now that it is Bob Motzko, is going to have to sell the program. Minnesota kind of going into it had an apathy of a program that not up to the high standards of Minnesota, but has not been having losing seasons or anything of that matter. Yeah. But I mean, they finished. They finished as a top 5 team last year and had a ton of apathy last year. So it, in a way, you need to have a coach that is going to be. You need to have a coach that's going to be selling the program.
Yeah.
But you also don't need to have a coach whose main job is to sell the program to the alums and to the fan base here, because you still need to win on the ice.
Right.
And I think it does say a lot that Minnesota went out for one of the higher-end head coaches who has done a lot on the ice and has done a lot to build a program. I do like that with Coach Motzko, we talked a lot about just him developing players and bringing in some diamonds in the rough. He's also shown that he can coach high-end players with the last 2 World Juniors, winning a gold and a bronze. And at the same time, he can recruit, he can bring those high-end players, and also just more than anything, I think bringing him in still shows that Minnesota, and having a guy who's done that at his alma mater, it just shows Minnesota remains a crown jewel job.
Yeah, for sure. And another factor was, all right, this job's been open twice in 30 years, right?
Yes.
And if you're Bob or if you're anyone, whether you were Mike Hastings or whoever it would be, I mean, you may never get this opportunity again. So I think that also played a big factor of, well, I've probably have accomplished, and that's what I've kind of now come home with him leaving St. Cloud, is he did everything he could to bring a national championship to that program, got him to a Frozen Four, had very talented teams, and he wasn't able to get his maybe ultimate goal. But man, he put St. Cloud on the map, and I can see where after I use the word, you kind of get tired of that, right? You kind of get tired of being one and dones and failing to live up to expectations. Time to take a new job. I don't think someone should be kicked in the gut for a decision like that.
How do you think he'll be remembered in the long term? I know it's so hard to say because he just took the Minnesota job, but Herb Brooks is on the arena, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how would you... He's not going to be Herb Brooks, right? But I mean, like, how would he be remembered, do you think? It is 13 years, and you talk about the success here.
Right, so from a St. Cloud perspective.
From the
right?
St. Cloud's perspective.
Yeah, obviously, I think time heals all wounds. That helps. It's interesting, because, like, what happens if he flames out in 2 years and in a terrible situation happens where he's fired, Then does St. Cloud go like, aha, like, look what happened to you? Or does he go on during this contract run, he brings home a couple national championships, and then St. Cloud's going, oh, God dang it, we're not going to honor that guy with a statue in 25 years or a plaque. So I think time will help it. It's St. Cloud. They're not going to be like these vultures like Green Bay that are waiting to pick on someone like none other. Like, they'll get over what happened to them. I'm hinting at Brett Favre leaving.
I will say that first Minnesota St. Cloud game at the National Hockey Center is going to be something.
Going to be brutal. There's going to be some boo birds.
They better not have it. Better not be like fan night or whatever.
Yeah, the pregame Buffaloes will be flowing. It's that is going to be an interesting sight. I'm checking my life insurance before I go up there.
Oh my gosh,
it's going to be.
That's going to be one where I'm just going to tell Tom
life
Nelson,
and
I'll be
health
like,
insurance.
You're not going to put me in the press box behind the students because
it is not a press box either.
It's not.
Press row behind the
press row behind the. Yeah.
Maybe they got to make it during a break or something.
Yeah. Oh, they'll still show up.
They'll be there.
Security will be on.
That's even worse. They don't have to go to class the next morning.
St. Cloud is really dedicated.
I've done
show up anytime.
I've done Halloween night at the Minnesota St. Cloud State there, and I think that will take the cake even more.
Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting side. I think eventually they'll get over it and they'll appreciate everything he's done. But how I think how his career goes at the U of M probably tells how St. Cloud feels about it.
What has to happen for St. Cloud to be fine with it? Like, does another coach have to come in, get kind of the same? I mean, it seems like they have to get kind of the same level of recruits and have success. If anything, so maybe the guy goes farther in the playoffs, and you're like, screw Motzko.
Right, and that's probably the easiest short-term fix is whoever steps in, takes his place. The team's still good, and they win a regional and they get to the Frozen Four again. I mean, that would be obviously the best case scenario, and that would definitely heal some wounds. But knowing people, they'll still say, take that, Motzko, for so and so taking over our program now and getting to the Frozen Four. So it's something. I don't think St. Cloud is such vultures where like they're going to despise the guy. I really don't. Obviously, there'll naturally be some regret that he did this, but I'm looking at it as a rational person and not as a St. Cloud. I'm trying to think of this as like a person that's outside of St. Cloud. Like you got to thank Bob for.
It's one of the reasons I kind of wanted to have you on because you got a little bit of those both sides.
Yeah.
At least get a good reaction and be able to.
So what if you had the old WCHA and they had?
Nope.
How long did it take to bring up the WCHA in this podcast? Tom was a staunch proponent. If you didn't listen to the last podcast, Tom was a staunch proponent.
Tom came with about
the
4
WCHA.
or 5
I was trying to create a character.
Yeah.
He was so bad at segues that last episode. You said the word big. You said the word 10. You said the word Big 10. You said even just something that started with a W. It'd be WCHA. What?
Right. Yeah. I think St. Cloud will have will have their coach here soon. I don't think it's going to be like an all-month process of April finding the right guy. I think they'll find them pretty soon.
So they'll do it tomorrow after we record this.
Likely.
Yes.
Exactly. And if that's Garrett Raboyne, if that's Mike Gibbons, that could be obviously easy placeholders. I don't know if those are long-term answers. I really don't.
Would you want somebody who's been a previous head coach to take over?
As previous head coach of St. Cloud, like specifically, or just?
Well, no, because Herb Brooks is dead. I don't think Craig Dahl's going to do it.
Right.
I mean, what about the Gopher candidates we talked about? Who was?
No, I'm saying, but do you want somebody who's been a head coach of college hockey, who has that experience?
Yeah, I think that would help. I think that's important because that they've already had success here. They lost Mikey Icymount. They're going to lose some. You're going to lose players in college hockey every year.
Went early.
Borgen's gone. So, but the program itself, I still think is built up for relative success, and I'm thinking that they're going to want someone that can still shoot life in the program, still be a respectable coach. Yeah, I don't think it'd be a risky hire. I think they're going to go out and get the right guy because St. Cloud hockey is it up there. I mean, that's the bread and butter.
So my question there was it Mike Hastings was the Minnesota State coach?
Yeah.
And then who was the other guy who was Northern Michigan or Michigan Tech?
Northern Michigan, Grant Petolny, but he just signed an 8-year extension.
Oh, he's off the table.
8-year extension for
he got a $100,000 raise for basically going through and being named for a couple jobs.
And am I wrong to say that like? I've seen some what if Lucia goes to St. Cloud? Can we kill any Lucia coaching?
Can you
room?
imagine though?
No, I think that'd be worse. I don't want that.
What do you want?
I think
Hastings,
I don't think
though.
That's a distraction. Like I think that's just a distraction waiting to happen.
But what about Mike Hastings? It has to be a step up, right? St. Cloud State.
Yeah, and he's a St. Cloud alum.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is he in play?
That contract's gonna be tough to get out of. That he's in with Minnesota State.
The other issue with him is that the money that he's making at Minnesota State is pretty close to the money that Bob Motzko is making at St. Cloud. And you don't know how much more you can give as an incentive. I think nationally you can say St. Cloud State is a higher profile job. And honestly, also, that's another thing we should probably give credit for Motzko doing at St. Cloud State is when the NCHC started, St. Cloud State was not one of the original 6 teams. You kind of forget about that. Just he's gone in there. He's won a couple conference titles, a regular season. He's won a conference championship. But when the conference was starting in 2011 or so, like when everyone was leaving, they're starting to form it. They were not among the first 6. I believe it's them and Western Michigan joined later.
Yeah.
They were kind of looking to get Notre Dame in there, trying to maybe figure out a couple other things going, but. It could have very easily been a sliding doors thing there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like Frank Serratori. That's who I would like.
You want Frank?
Yes.
I'm all aboard it. I think he'd be perfect for St. Cloud.
Nate will go up and cover St. Cloud. He's done with Minnesota if that happens.
He's done with New York,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, done with New York. Done with New York. Can you fly direct from LaGuardia to
You can fly to St. Cloud now. Yeah,
from New York?
You can.
Not from
United
New York.
Airlines, I know, goes to St. Cloud Airport now. It's a big new thing.
Direct?
Yeah.
It's like
well, I know
Chicago.
from
It's like- no,
Minneapolis.
it's like or Chicago or whatever.
LaGuardia? That's.
Oh, no,
that's
okay,
what
no, I can't
I'm
do it.
asking for a friend.
No, but I mean, if he's still at Air Force, I'm in New York. I can just go up to West Point.
Yeah. I
They
would
play Atlantic
love,
hockey. Oh.
love Frank Serratori there. That'd be perfect. He'd be awesome with the student media. They'd eat him up.
Yeah.
It would just
Yes.
it'd be a home. That would be the home run hire.
I'm not kidding when I said Nate Wells will stop covering Gopher hockey and go cover St. Cloud.
I'd probably get in the car with them and we'd be Airbnb-ing in.
There'd be some. Yeah, we would find.
We'd be at the
places.
Best Western every other Friday night for covering Gopher hockey games throughout the season.
Oh, I had going out to Sioux Falls. It was fun. So it was me and Chad Graff, and going to start that. I don't think Chad fully. I think he knew who Frank Serratori was.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever covered him at New Hampshire or the Gopher stuff that he's done here. And it was just great to see him and a few other people. Once Frank goes out there, just light
It's
up
pure
and be like,
gold.
"This is gold."
It's so good. It's so good.
Some of the quotes he's dropping. And the other great thing about this was all the coaches are like very close and connected. So like Motzko was an assistant under Frank Serratori. I believe Mike Hastings played for Frank at some point. I'm trying to remember how Scott Sandlin also, I think, either played or coached for it with him.
And Motzko and Hastings have a connection.
Yeah, and they all had these connections, and it was basically all the press conferences were just the coaches trying to one up one another.
Right.
It was just fantastic.
Yeah, it's a weird connection how college hockey.
Yeah,
brings
college
together.
hockey is a very small world.
Yeah, it brings everything together.
Yeah, it's extremely small, just in the coaching and in the players, because a lot of the players will
Even
play
in the
with one
media.
another. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Have all the same people every time at Gopher hockey availabilities. Yeah.
Except for when the press conferences are, and then it's me, you, and
Yes.
Diego are looking around and be like, "Hey, other people cover stuff too."
Yeah.
How many of them do you think have seen Space Jam?
Most of them, because I guess most of them are pretty cultured. See,
Was that off?
So you're not?
Was that during our production meeting, or did we actually do that during?
We didn't
talk
talk
No,
about
some of
that.
this stuff is going on the pod. I'm just
Oh,
telling you,
okay.
there's a cold open on this
Okay.
one. I'm just letting you know.
What?
we're getting a
Frozen
slew
news.
of Space Jam tweets.
Yeah, we're gonna.
though. A lot of them.
Drew, watch Space Jam.
I didn't think I could get this much steam on Twitter by just mentioning the word Space Jam.
Look what you've done.
Yeah, right.
Drew, what would as someone who's covered Gopher hockey and kind of been around there, what does Motzko need to do to constitute a success?
I think at least from the outlined, at least from what I've gauged from what Mark Coyle said in the past, is generally he's just got to succeed in the regular season and succeed in the postseason. So he's just got to have a full year of consistency, not ups and downs or missing out on the tournament or bowing out early in the tournament. So I think that's what it's going to take to at least get him, keep him favorably within the administration. Obviously, the athletics department wants him to win at every level, at every opportunity. But I think fans want to see. Fans obviously want a good product on the ice, so they're gonna want the same success, and I think they're gonna show up to see to see him start out that journey and to see if he can get him back to Frozen Fours and title games after just a 4-year absence.
Do you see a boost in attendance because he's there?
I think that's where all the success lies in my
Okay,
opinion.
that's what I'm getting at.
That's
Okay.
where that's where I'd put all the eggs in the basket for it being a success. Does the attendance go back up to close to
do
what
you
it
think
was?
it does though? Like the people wanted Lucia out, right? And
I think naturally, but I also think some of those people aren't like random season ticket holders that acquire all this money. It's kind of like when the Philly fans, everyone's like, "Oh, these Philly fans are coming to Minneapolis." Like those morons can't afford a Super Bowl ticket. Like, that's not going to happen. So, but I think his success though does mostly hinge on making Mariucci close to a sellout again. I think that's honestly the biggest tell of what Motzko can bring here is if he can put more butts back.
And
in
that's
the
a tough
seats.
thing because that's all not on him.
No,
Like it has to
Right.
be. It has to be a program-wide thing. The marketing has to go together. The team needs
Yes.
to do well. There needs to be some sort of lift up going on. But yeah, like I'm with you. I do think something needs to kind of turn around. It's one of the reasons why there's a new era of Gopher hockey that we're talking about.
with like the Gopher Rubes that have flooded Twitter inboxes of ours before, like that's, where I've kind of bailed out Lucia or not thrown them all to the wolves is, this goes hand in hand. Like Lucia is not the reason that season ticket holders and the marketing of Gopher hockey has just fallen to the ground. It's a pretty collection unit. So it's definitely going to be up to, in my opinion, attendance. Naturally, I think the winning will come at the U of M. It for the most part has for the better part of the last 20 years. It's interesting. I'm excited for the Motzko era at the U of M. Just to see this unfold is still taking some time, but I'm even eager just to see what happens.
Yeah, I especially remember seeing at least. I think I was going to mention this earlier, but on Twitter, especially after the Air Force loss, I saw a lot of Gopher hockey Twitter say, "Okay, I hope this is it for the Motzko conversation in the hires." And people were saying, "Yep, I'm comfortable not. I don't want to hire Motzko." No. I saw numerous tweets saying, "Okay, this hopefully is it. That hopefully is the nail in the coffin for the Motzko speculation." And I wonder how those people will feel. How they feel now after Tuesday and Thursday last week after the introduction and the hire, and it'll be interesting to see how they feel after first season, however it goes. Obviously, it's up in the air because there's a lot of. The program's just about as different as it has been in the last 20 years, considering two of its most reliable players are gone. The coach is gone. Potentially, all the assistants are gone. Wouldn't be shocked. We'll watch us hear about it tomorrow. That'd be
sounds about right.
Let's talk about that. Do you obviously Mike Gensel and Scott Bell both have another year on their contract. They're both going to get paid regardless. Do you expect them to be one or both to be a part of Motzko staff?
I think my brother and I, who's the lone Gopher hockey fan in this relationship that I have with my brother. Him and I are talking, and I think naturally maybe you got to keep one to kind of keep everything together, kind of the opposite of St. Cloud. It wouldn't be surprising if a placeholder kind of just steps in there for a little while and takes over. I think to keep maybe the locker room and just to ease things for Motzko, having a Bell or a Gensel around will probably make that transition a little easier. I don't think it's a given. I don't think it's required, but I'm going to guess Bob's going to want his staff in there and his picks there too. So I'm sure there's probably some due process that's going on where he's meeting with Gensel and knowing the hockey coaching world. I'm sure they've already been intertwined and they've shared beers together knee deep in frickin' Mexico like he did with Don Lucia in 2002. So I think some of those talks.
If somebody ever will spend the money to send me down to Naples, Florida for the coaches meeting, I kind of want to do that and just be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
I don't think it'd ever be worth it for money wise to. For a venue, outlet. But hey,
right.
Send pitches my way.
Yeah. Drew, what do you think?
I think Gensel's been in the wings of being associate head coach and being a head coach in a lot of different places for a long time. And obviously, much has been noted of his Minnesota loyalty. Don Lucia mentioned it twice, I think, and how a strong proponent of Gophers hockey he's been over his time playing, coaching, and I think he might decide to move on elsewhere because that's something that I think he wants to be a head coach and he wants to be the guy, and I think he's obviously had the success in the past to warrant that. So I wouldn't be shocked if he goes if he is not a part of the program next year because he's been around the college hockey world for a long time. He's got a lot of I'm sure he has a lot of credibility
and
in a lot of different schools.
Few people have blood maroon and gold the way that Mike Gensel has.
I didn't fact check this, but Jess Myers pointed this out that the day they announced the Motzko hire, that later on, and this is very conspicuous and kind of black and white, but Jake Gensel scored a sweet goal or something. And Mike Gensel tweeted out, "Best news I saw all day."
That's a tough. That is a tough thing.
Kind of. Yeah, I know it's probably jabbing at, or you're grasping at straws, but he might be a little hurt that
you couldn't blame him if somebody if your dream job opens and you have been waiting in the wings for as long as he has, and kind of been the heir apparent in some ways. Yeah, you can't
next St. Cloud coach. Next St.
Mike
Cloud,
Gensel.
he goes there and takes on Motzko.
That'd be pretty epic. It'd be pretty awesome. I don't know. If
And he's a guy.
Wouldn't work.
And Gensel was one of the guys who interviewed for the job too.
yeah.
So
Right.
it is a tough thing to swallow if that's where you're going in. But at the same time, I mean, I understand why Minnesota went in the different direction that they did. I think Mike would have been a great head coach if he hired him. I think we said this last week. We said the same thing about Motzko too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a tough thing. Like if he goes elsewhere or whatever, I wouldn't blame him. At the end of the day, I don't think anyone has been just a great representative of the program as he has. But if he doesn't want to be an associate coach or an assistant to a third Gopher head coach, I wouldn't blame him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on the other hand of that, I wouldn't be shocked to see Scott Bell back either. That's one thing that he has a lot less coaching experience. He's obviously been really involved in the recruiting side of it this year.
He's been really big with he's really been
those
big with
those Herbie fishing gifs all over Twitter. And I mean, maybe to keep some of those to help some of those kids stay committed. To say, okay, here's the coach that recruited you. I'm keeping him here. He's gonna stay. I mean, from a Motzko perspective, like here we're proud. If I keep him here, I mean, he could help that transition, but also keep those high profile guys that he had been getting in the past.
Just out of curiosity, is continuity common in college hockey? Like whenever other jobs switch over, do you tend to see the same assistants? Just off the top of your head, I'm sure that's not something you track.
No, not really.
No,
it's not the most
so
it's not the most common thing. And a lot of times you'll have when a new coach comes in. I'm just off the top of my head, I can't really think of too many that have had that.
So it wouldn't be taken the wrong way if Motzko just cleans house. And
No, it wouldn't. And it sounded like he's at least gonna talk to like the current assistants, like kind of either see how they're going, at least get the lay of the land. But no, it wouldn't be a surprise if one and or both of them do not come back. I'm sure in some way it would make sense for them to bring back at least have somebody who has kind of a bit more Minnesota ties, and they did a big sell job during the presser of Motzko's times playing JV and getting cut by Brad Buteau. Those came up probably about more times in the last few days than the 13 years of St. Cloud for obvious reasons. You're going to kind of downplay that. No doubt. 75 miles up north, but. I wouldn't be. That would kind of make sense. But yeah, Bell's done Bell's been kind of big with some of the younger guys who aren't going to come in for a few years. They're certainly his. Gensel's just been all over the place. Just as far as recruiting, kind of get his own stamp. We're going to kind of see what Motzko does fairly soon because they need to bring in at least one defenseman, if not a second. So they're going to have to do something. Kind of just in the near future before the start of the year. Yeah.
The recruiting will definitely, like we were talking about earlier in the podcast, what kind of players he gets. I heard Tom Chorsky make a case that, Bob never recruits Edina players, and Willie recruited Edina players. I think it's kind of ironic that Tom Chorsky's complaining about that. But
now that he's an Edina guy?
Yeah, right? So I think that's kind of funny. And
also, that might be the two different schools, though.
Yeah.
Like with St. Cloud.
It's also funny because for years, Minnesota didn't have an Edina pipeline, and now they have one. They didn't have a Shattuck one for a while. When JP Parisi was around, now they have that.
He will recruit differently at Minnesota, right?
Yeah, he will recruit differently. It's also probably a little bit more politically. He has to kind of go around a few more things.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, I'm curious to see how his recruiting style can translate to being under the lights in Minnesota. Oh. All right, so let's shoot. That's enough. Motzko can kind of transition over to the Frozen Four, where he will not be unless he's watching. Lucia will not be unless he's watching, although it sounds like he might not.
Maybe from a suite, and I'm sure he might make a suite deal with the TV camera. Like, you do not show me that suite at all. So I think that would be kind of fun. I bet he makes.
I had a couple of years ago going out to the Frozen Four. I was on the same flight as Don Lucia.
Oh, that's funny.
And I'm walking through because he's a big name, so he's out in the first class. I'm in whatever. I'm on way back the plane. I'm just like, Coach. He's just like,
hello.
hello, going back to pretending to read, going back to reading. He's just like, all right, see you. All right.
Last call, Don Lucia. Last call.
It was one of those flights though where like at least about 10 different people were like college hockey involved. It was like the most.
Will the Mr. Don Lucia please come to the front desk? We have a seat upgrade. Seat upgrade available.
That was the thing. Like I went through first class to get to my seat, and like first class was Don Lucia and his wife, and there's about. I'm trying to think. There's maybe like 3 or 4 rows of first class, and like at least like 2/3 of first class are like college hockey people that like I know. So like it was literally just saying. Yeah. So it wasn't just saying hi to him.
It was first class. Drusev, Coastal.
Oh
elite.
No.
Coastal elite. I know you were in first class.
No. I've never sat in first class.
Never sat in first class. I'm a huge fan of the Delta Comfort Suite, though. You know, the Delta Comfort level.
Yeah.
Big fan. Huge fan. Huge fan. Huge fan.
Oh, I've been those. Yeah, it's
complimentary drinks. Are you kidding me?
Wells takes the Learjet. He goes straight.
Which one? The black or the white?
I've done before. I've done like out of New York, between like New York, Chicago, a couple times the Delta shuttle.
Like a smaller.
It's like a little smaller plane, and like
when they let you
every
fly.
hour. No, but so it's like it's like one of those smaller planes, but it's like every hour. But they have complimentary drinks on theirs.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody's just like.
You mean complimentary ginger ale?
Yeah.
Because no one else gets any of the drinks.
And meanwhile, Schreier takes the jumper seat as the last seat available with a stewardess in the back, as he's clearly listening to everything I say right now.
Yeah.
Schreier.
Hey, Dom.
Sorry, what now? I'm doing work.
He did miss the whole thing.
That's good. You guys insult me so much. This is what you deserve.
It's okay. You can listen back to while you're producing.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. You're gonna laugh.
That's good. That's
heard nothing about I thought. I chirped you pretty good, and you just
did.
Yeah, no,
That's Tom's way of saying
I'm good.
Mr. West Coast.
The interim role.
Tom, this is where you hope that this one records, unlike when we were on the podcast.
Oh my God!
Hey, he got away from the mic again.
Yeah.
Tom got away from the mic.
God. Yeah, so do you know this story?
There's bingo.
No.
John, so we're recording Tin Whiskers, Giles and the goalie. I guess not famous Giles, according to Coastal Elite Nate Wells.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, to his face, you said that he was not famous.
I was pretty starstruck when I met Giles the first time.
I just said you had to explain who Giles is, because if you're listening for the first time, you may not know who Giles is.
Everyone knows who Giles is. Listen to Giles and the goalie. It's a great
really
podcast.
Hope everyone turned down the volume of the podcast for the last 30 seconds there, because I rip your ears. Yeah. I feel really bad.
I was away from the mic. Okay, so we're at Tin Whiskers recording Giles and the goalie, and otherwise fine hockey podcast about the Wild. And I was live producing it. I forgot to plug in the USB port. I was getting levels because we're in a bar because they're external volume.
Yep.
John Bonus, literally 5 minutes in, pulls it. He's like, "Do you need to plug this in?" I'm like, "Hold up, guys. We need to plug this in." Bonus, 5 minutes into the podcast I was recording, just was like, "I'm done here."
we walks out. We basically pointed this out at the start of the podcast. He's like, yeah. So I'll see you guys later.
You walked off?
No. John did. Kind of like my work's done here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's a pro. He's a pro.
No, I think you're just getting closer and closer to me taking over your spot.
No, exactly.
And John is the geek in the great Gleeman and the Geek podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So it was fun. He was out there. Sorry, who's more famous, Nate Wells or John Bonus? Be honest.
Oh, it's probably John. I mean, come on.
Wow! Now we get a little humility. No one knows who Giles is, but John Bonus.
John's on K-Fan all the time.
I know, it's true. Yeah, I know. This guy's on NPR and WCCO and Colin Cowherd.
I was on a lot of radio stations last week with this news.
Heck yeah.
So
Howard Stern.
Yeah, so I got to go to NPR, which is kind of a cool
That's
thing.
nice. Yeah,
he's like, "Oh, it's nicer than this." I was like, "Well, we're not fucking NPR."
Right. That'll work.
We're not NPR.
There goes the explicit tag on the podcast.
F8 on the keyboard there for Adobe Edition.
Yeah, this is Edition 1.5. Oh. Not NPR. I'm sorry, not NPR.
Go Radio at Edition 1.5 too. So.
Oh, really? This is a computer from 2001. You're sitting in a seat that was in Jingle All the Way, the Schwarzenegger classic.
Well, I was so good for Go that they paid me not to work for them, so it worked out pretty well. But yeah, Frozen 4. Man,
which, speaking of flying,
that thing that's happening this weekend.
We don't have to fly.
Right.
Because the Frozen 4 is here this week.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah, but there are 4 teams, as the name implies. 3 of them are Big Ten schools, Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State.
I thought there was CCHA and W. Sorry. Go on.
And then Minnesota
Unreal.
Duluth is the lone non-Big Ten school.
Yeah.
So we've all covered the Big Ten at some point. We've all seen Duluth a few times this year. Just I guess first off, let's go with this. 4 teams from the West. After the year after a year where the Big Ten, the NCHC, kind of dominated non-conference play. Are you guys surprised at all that it's just an all West Frozen Four?
A little bit, just for the rarity of no like BC and no BU, and a little bit that there's like not a single East school. I guess I think that is a little strange, but I think when like you look at the participants, is it more surprising? Like, I guess not to frame your question, another one, but like, is it more surprising that Michigan made this Frozen Four or that Duluth made this Frozen Four? Like, I mean, when you consider the circumstances, they're both so uniquely different. Like, I look at Ohio State and I look at Notre Dame and I look at their resume and I'm like, okay, I get why you're probably here. But you look at Michigan, where they were a year ago, like, what?
Yes, where they were a year ago.
Crazy 180, probably like one of the best turnarounds in general. And then with UMD, who looked like they were not going to be playing in the tournament just 3 weeks ago, all of a sudden squeaks by with rolls through the regional with a pretty young team. And you look at their team, at least on paper in the bare bones of it, and you're like, well, is this more surprising that they had this much turnover from a year ago and they're still back? It's an interesting Frozen Four. I think it's got 4 really good teams in it. West or East, it's just been it's such a good field, I think, for St. Paul this year.
I think good for fans that a lot more Western teams might be more inclined to now come to St. Paul. I think it's obviously the most unsurprising pick out of the bunch is Notre Dame. I think watching them last year, you weren't shocked the way they played in the Frozen Four that they got. I mean, in the regional that they got to the Frozen Four.
Yeah, Frozen Four, not so much.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to think, especially even with the departures of Anders Bjork and Cal Peterson, that was the team was still that strong to come back after those 2 gigantic departures. I mean, your starting goaltender leaves. A lot of times it might be let's get the goalie feel for college hockey and then win the next year.
Yeah, but instead they replace him with a goalie who's probably been the best one in college hockey all season. He probably will.
Yeah, better than Cal Peterson played last year.
Yeah,
and didn't play a game last year. Did he even get in a game?
He got in for about 20 minutes or so last year.
Is bizarre how that. I mean. But yeah,
and he was a guy who I think when he kind of started the season thought maybe we'll platoon with Dylan St. Cyr, who is kind of a big freshman coming in of the U.S. development program, and they kind of did, and they did for a bit, and eventually he won the net, and he didn't give it back.
Yeah, and obviously that's the most unsurprising, I think, especially the way they played near the end of the season. Ohio State is just a solid pick in all 3 facets of the ice.
Since they played Minnesota, they've been on.
And again, another new goalie into the fold of the team, and he's really led them to a lot of success in the defense. For a team that hadn't been known for defense in a lot of the previous years, has really come on and been one of the better defensive teams in the conference also, and without giving up any of their hold on top 5 offense in the country. So, I mean, you have a top 5 defense, top 5 offense, and you have a goalie that's playing like he is. I mean, it's hard to say that they could bow out. I mean, they're playing against teams that are obviously very, very skilled, but I think out of those 2, based on their resumes so far this season and how hot the goalie's been playing, I mean, I know we've attributed a lot to how good the goalie's playing, to how far they're going to get. It looks like Ohio State and Notre Dame might have the best shots to win it all.
Yeah, I mean, just doing my preview for the week, it like surprised me how truly good Ohio State was. I mean, they were good last year, and I'm not terribly surprised, but I mean, I read that they're only one of 2 teams, Mankato being the other, that finished top 10 in offense, defense, power play, penalty kill. So I mean, they're well-rounded they're the most well-rounded team in the field, and I think they're a fun pick to pick. But they're going against UMD, who is also a pretty good team to start the field. With Notre Dame, I mean, I'm trying to think. Actually, I don't know if I saw them last year when I covered them because they weren't in the Big Ten, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
you probably watched like on TV the regional game.
Yeah, and I watched that. So I didn't have a whole lot of familiarity. Obviously, I saw their statistics, and I knew they were number one. They were just insanely good from October to February. I guess what I do wonder is if, do they have enough scoring? Do they have enough offense to bring to the table? Obviously, their goalie has been the best in college hockey, but I wonder if they do get down, if Michigan gets a quick goal or two in the first period, I wonder if Notre Dame has the offense.
I think Michigan's a tough team. It's a tough style for Notre Dame to play. They swept Notre Dame the last time they played, and they played them kind of close. Notre Dame swept the time before, but they were two close games. At the same time, you have Michigan. You have a team with a lot of offense, a team that at times you kind of saw towards the end of last season where maybe they're going to kind of put things together after losing so many players to early departures, and bringing in some quality freshmen, the Quinn Hughes and having Hayden Levine be kind of just at least a steady force in goal, because that was kind of a tough thing where they rarely played with the puck last year in Rip Aronson's last season.
They were. That's where I was just so surprised.
It was not a Michigan team at all, and it's still kind of for the first half of the season. At times, you didn't really see it for Michigan, and they put it together in the second half. They've been one of the better teams in college hockey during the second half. So I'm not surprised. You asked which team would you be more surprised to see them make the Frozen Four, and I was a little more surprised to see Duluth. Just they were kind of similar in ways where they're a very young team. Their entire blue line is freshmen and sophomores. They're underclassmen, and they had a lot of learning experiences. But the way they were inconsistent still throughout the second half of the season. They had some really good runs, wins, and then they would have some losing streaks. And I even think the last 2 weekends that they played was probably a perfect example where they lost twice in the Frozen Face-Off, and then they won twice in the West Regional. And neither of those games, I think Duluth has they know they can get ways to win, and they have the experience of a team of players that made the championship game last year, which is a huge X factor, but they've continued to find ways where they win, and you don't come away as impressed as you have for maybe the couple of the Michigan ones in the regional. And
right, when I look at Duluth and I look at their chances of could they win a national title this year, obviously it's the battle themselves. That's their biggest weakness. I think they match up well with whoever they play in the championship game or against Ohio State to kick off. I think they do match up well. But I mean, they played so poorly in that the NCHC Frozen Face-Off game, where they were undisciplined. You could just tell. It just seemed like they were all out of sorts. And when you lose both those games, it just kind of seemed like they kind of mailed it in, for the lack of a better word. They're like, all right, it doesn't look like the tournament's going to be possible. And they just looked all sorts of a mess. So that for them to go to the regional,
this is the Gophers podcast, right? not a Bulldogs podcast.
Well, we've already covered St. Cloud State a lot too. So
what about Loyola Chicago? Do they have a chance in the Frozen Four?
They don't. Although that was a game that Michigan Loyola Chicago sounds like it could have been a CCHA game from 1978.
It also
it wasn't. They did not have a college hockey team, but you would have to go and check. It's that close enough.
And how good does it feel to be a Michigan or Notre Dame student right now?
To be a Michigan fan would be
But
incredible.
the girls just beat UConn and won the national championship.
Did you get the games? Sorry, I'm going to go into a women's basketball tangent.
Yeah, that's fine.
Those games, from a competitive standpoint, both Notre Dame games were incredible.
Yeah, because it's the same lady who hit.
She hit both buzzer beaters. First the buzzer beater to send it to overtime, then the buzzer beater to win it in overtime, and then the buzzer beater to win the championship.
Muffet McGraw, underrated. First of all, underrated name. Just amazing.
Best women's basketball college.
Maybe best college coach name. Name a better college coach name.
I think some people would have to say Frank Serratore here.
Frank Serratore is solid.
It has to be college.
Chris Shefsey, I was going to go college just because it's all.
I like Guy Gadowski.
I think Guy Gadowski.
Guy Gadowski.
Yeah.
No,
but either way, great name. And then underrated program. Notre Dame's always D's. They're just UConn's been the.
You sound like someone my age, Tom.
Yeah, for real.
You know what? Notre Dame's D's, man. You know what? I don't even know.
Tom, the Gen Xer over here.
IRL, they could win 10 games if they try, but gosh, Tom,
no,
that's not actually. No, I got to say that those two games were. I watched the fourth quarter. I watched the fourth quarter of that UConn game,
Yeah.
but oh my gosh, was that one of the
Right.
most entertaining basketball games I've ever seen.
Yeah, they were all really good.
I feel bad for people who did not watch that
Yeah.
game.
So I have an idea. Did you ever see UConn had an HBO thing where they went like behind the scenes, kind of like a Hard Knocks?
I did not see it.
So they spent one season with Junior Ariema. I think Frank Serratori should get
That'll
something
be
like that.
awesome.
Yeah,
How-
it would
how-
have, but
why-
it would have to be HBO because you need to be uncensored.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I still stand by. I would love if ESPN put Frank Serratori in the studio, or if they put like the Serratoris together for
Yeah.
if they put the Serratoris together for like a megacast or whatever.
Right.
Like, I'd
Well,
be
it'd
happy
be
to go.
If someone brought him on a podcast, maybe, like a Nate Wells, who's a big name, super famous, more famous than Giles. Yeah, maybe we should do that, Nate Wells.
I'll get Frank Serratori. I introduced you guys to Frank Serratori last year on the show. That was great.
Yeah.
It was, oh man, that was fun times.
Heck yeah. And when I guess when you look at the Frozen Four field, the remaining teams and who is maybe a pick to win it. I mean, I think I don't know. I look at Notre Dame and Michigan, at least from box score standings, and I see some flaws. I really do. And where I look at Ohio State and UMD, I mean, I think I put my money on whoever wins that game, I think, is probably going to win the national championship. So I think I like Notre Dame. Obviously, they're the number one seed, but I kind of question if they have enough offense in the tank to really get it done.
That's a tough thing if they run up and are playing from behind. I do like their defense in a style that works
good.
well in a single elimination game. But at the same time, they're going against a Michigan team that knows them and has played them there. So you don't have that. It takes a couple times to figure out the style and adjust to it.
For sure.
We always go with Ohio State. I feel like Ohio State's identity this year has just been they're a team that people forget about. They forget how good they are.
Which is weird because last year they were like they just would do like wasn't there a lot of like wasn't it either I can never pronounce his name Tanner what's his name Lazinski was it him that got suspended? Who got suspended?
It was
from
Josh.
Ohio
It was
State?
Josh Healy.
Josh Healy.
It was Josh
He's
Healy.
the guy who got suspended, I think, all 4 years of his career.
Right. It just seemed like they played a really
He got suspended so much that
silly
they
way.
suspended him after regardless of whether or not they would have made the NCAA tournament.
Wow. So
And they still sat
so
with
that part was a little surprising. So like, oh, they must actually be playing like actually hockey and not taking like cheap shots and playing stupidly. So I respected that. But it's cool that they also got their first time since '98 that they've been in the Frozen Four field where all these other three teams have historically been there before.
They're
which
the
is
last
cool.
time that they played the X.
Yeah.
Steve Rollick's done an amazing job.
Steve Rollick
as a head
has
coach
done a
there.
really good job.
Yeah.
I mean,
there.
as one of the guys who's not been at the program that he's been at, I mean, out of the other three schools, each guy has been there almost 10 years or more. I think Jeff Jackson's been there 9.
I mean, if you include Mel Pearson's like 10
Oh,
before,
sorry, I forgot. I forgot about Mel. I keep thinking Red Berenson. I
know. Red Berenson.
And I keep thinking Mel Pearson is sort of like a guy who's always just been at Michigan because he was there, and then he left for Tech, right, and then came.
Yep.
Then he went back, but I mean, Rollick's done a lot of good for that program in a very short amount of time, and especially, I mean, him and his assistants have done an incredible job. Especially, I think I mentioned earlier, just the defense has gone so far under the radar as being good because everyone just thought, oh yeah, Ohio State, they'll just score out like they're a Big Ten team, they'll just get a ton of goals and that's it.
And that's the way they won a lot of games last year.
And now they've put together those pieces in those last two, I guess, segments of the game to really be incredibly competitive and to threaten for a national championship.
Yeah. For me, I just think the big story of this Frozen Four is the Big Ten having the three teams there.
Yep.
They've kind of been a conference that, for better or worse, has been trying to get respect nationally.
Yeah.
And respect a lot of times is earned in the postseason. And they went the way that they needed to. They kind of needed to earn it. They had a lot of people this year try to be like, oh, the Big Ten did a good job in non-conference play. What does that kind of mean? We'll see what it is later. You had you had 4 teams in the tournament. You had 5 in the top 13 when you include Minnesota.
Yeah.
There really weren't, and it's kind of just watching and covering it throughout the year. There weren't too many there weren't bad teams. There weren't bad games.
No.
Even Wisconsin was kind of a tough one. Even they kind of fought a little bit down the stretch, but they're still kind of tough. And then Michigan State.
They were competitive.
They were
with a lot of
competitive. They were
teams.
competitive.
Especially from last year.
Yeah, and Dan
last
Close
year.
version. Oh, they were
They were horrendous last year. So, yeah, and that's good. That's huge for it. And I think with the Big Ten hockey thing, it's interesting. I wonder what it's like being in these circles and being at Penn State or being at Michigan or being at Ohio State, and you're probably looking at the Big Ten, and you're like, this is great. This is awesome. Everyone's succeeding. Mm-hmm. This is phenomenal. And then you go back into Minneapolis, and it was like, Big Ten killed hockey. It's amazing. Like it's truly amazing to look at it.
If Motzko brings people back, or his regime brings people back to Mariucci,
yeah.
Does that change the narrative on the Big Ten, or do you think people are still bitter? And
I think the bitterness will probably always be there. Those big mistake morons will be at every flipping hockey game. But if you don't like start just embracing the rivalries and we get it. The North Dakota games were awesome. Playing Mankato and Duluth and St. Cloud twice a year was great. It's done. Like, get over it.
They still play those teams,
and guess what? They still play them. So it's if you don't start embracing this Penn State dilemma and embracing what is happening in college hockey with Ohio State getting to the Frozen Four for the first time in 20 years, I think that's your own fault as a fan. It's not an indictment on the program just being, oh yeah, we killed the WCHA. Like, no, it just embrace what you have going here, and it's been awesome.
This would have been a great week for Tom to be Mr. Old WCHA.
I know. If I could play the character, I would do it.
Yeah. No, that would have been incredible.
Everyone loved the WCHA, but it's over. It's like
it's easy for you to say,
right?
In the NCHC when you can play North Dakota.
Tom, your WCHA guy for some reason was really Southern.
Yeah, that's right. I had a Southern accent.
Right.
Yeah.
WCHA guy.
He was in Alabama, Huntsville.
Yeah.
It's I'm going to use a hilarious comparison. It's like your first girlfriend. Like, of course she was fun. You did all your fun first things with her. But guess what? You find love again.
This is what happens when you drive Lyft. You go down this route.
You find love again. You'll find someone else. It's okay.
Drew is on the floor laughing. He's literally rolling around on the floor.
Move on from the past.
Drew's redder than a tomato.
There's a guy, gal, or whoever for everyone. Figure it out. It's not hard.
The Love Podcast.
Yeah.
Declan Goff.
The Lift
Newest on the Zone Coverage Podcast
Lift
Network.
Love is a lawsuit waiting to happen.
I just want to say, Drew's radio voice is like 20 times better than my radio voice.
You put the Doppler effect on.
I'll go for it. I'll be the new voiceoever guy.
Wow.
Here at Zone
That was awesome.
Oh yeah,
that's the tough thing. The tough thing for
I need a cigarette.
Yeah.
The tough thing for Minnesota hockey as the state is Minnesota hockey loves Minnesota hockey. Nationally, everyone's kind of going and doing their own different thing, and Minnesota's trying to keep everything together, and that's kind of just where you get the disconnect. And,
right.
I mean, we're kind of just as a hockey, we're a state. We're just used to doing things our own way.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, the Big Ten hockey is great. You had a few teams that had some down years early on, but it's changed. They've bounced back. They kind of are going the ways that you would assume that they'd have. Michigan's bounced back. Ohio State's playing better. Penn State is, as a whole, is just the way that they're doing things in the 6th year of their program is insane. Even Wisconsin's kind of bounced back a little bit. You expect them to be a little better once they get some recruits in that'll play defense.
Yeah, Cunnins obviously was a departure for them. They took a little bit of a step back this year, obviously not making it to the tournament. But if you think about it, I mean, Penn State and Wisconsin are the only teams in the Big Ten. I mean, I guess Minnesota as well. So three of the 7 Big Ten teams took a small step back. But you still see teams like Ohio State. I mean, you have Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame. Sorry, I don't know why I took time to think.
Notre Dame power, Big Ten power.
I'm just saying, yeah. Tom, you're absolutely correct. They are a Big Ten power.
Traditional Big Ten power.
No, but they're in the Big Ten now, and they're in the Frozen Four, and that for a conference strength and for how healthy a conference can be. If you have 3 teams take a small step back, one team almost make the tournament, one team almost make the tournament, and Wisconsin take a step back because they had one of their high-profile recruits leave, and you have to offset that, you have 3 programs make the Frozen Four. You have Michigan State, who struggled for a number of years, take a pretty big leap forward. I mean, not to mention the Michigan wasn't even close to the national championship conversation last year, and then look at the step that they made.
By the way, one thing that I really hope that the media gets to do next year with the Big Ten is actually do polls or whatever, because I've had too many. I was hearing Mel Pearson and kind of Steve Rawley be like, we got picked 5th and 6th in the Big Ten this year and everything. And it's like, yeah, the coaches do that. Your peers did this.
Yeah.
Don't put that on us.
Exactly,
Are we going to put Miami and Clemson in the Big Ten next year?
You say Clemson?
Those are
Miami?
ACC teams.
Oh, sorry. You said Miami. I was thinking
Miami, Ohio.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys don't. I'm from the South. I don't know what Miami, Ohio is.
Hey.
That's where Louis Belpedio is from. Your own Giles Farrell wrote an article.
Yeah, that's right. He interviewed him, went down there and talked to him. Isn't that where Motzko stopped briefly? Is that Oxford, Ohio?
He was there for a year or two.
Yeah.
With Blase.
Enrico Blasi,
who I thought would have been a great Gopher pick for.
Is he
a Gopher though? If you're not a Gopher, you can't coach my team.
I like when he reached the final in like 2009 and kind of that era. He always he was a name that always would come up at that time. But Miami, I think more than anyone, is probably the biggest loser in realignment. Just they had a down patch when at the time that everything happened with realignment,
right?
And they in a tough conference.
Yeah, they are. They definitely have had a tough transition, especially to where they were in year 1 to year 2. So it's interesting. It's odd. I can't wait to find that clip of me comparing the WCHA to my ex-girlfriend, but you know.
We got to make those have got to be bites. Those have got to be sound bites.
What was that? Lift confession. Lift love.
Lift love.
Yeah.
With Declan Goff.
So I was bummed. I was trying to find your tweet about how there's no chance that Motzko would. I only found the.
There was a Mark Parrish tweet about that too. Mark Parrish said that earlier in the year.
Mark Parrish, my good friend.
Your close personal friend, Mark Parrish. Exactly.
Are you Sid now?
I had So we did a family dinner over the weekend, and my mom was like, your friend Russo was mentioned on the news, and I was like,
he is the news.
I was like, I guess he's my friend, but I mean, it's more like
us famous people. They're like Family Guy is the Beautiful People Club. Him and Russo are in the
no,
famous
but I thought that same
club.
thing of like it's always like when you try to explain. I would say because Declan,
no texting during the show. Come on, man.
Tweets.
You probably have this as like as a freelancer. Just trying to explain to your folks like what exactly.
Oh, I hate it. I can't stand it.
Or just like everyone in general, like friends, family.
Everyone has assumed in my family for the last 5 years I've been calling baseball games. I haven't called a baseball game in years.
Yeah.
I seriously haven't. Like, oh, how's baseball game?
I hope they're listening to this podcast.
I haven't
learn a lot about Declan Goff from listening to this podcast.
Literally
but that's always a tough thing where it's like, where do you work? You're like, well, a lot of places. Yeah.
He always leads with the Athletic. I'm at the Athletic. That $30 million. Yeah, Athletic.
Yeah. My grandparents called me the other day. They saw me on TV because of when Jess asked a question at the Motzko presser.
Oh, nice.
You made our site because you were in the background of one of his videos.
No, because
that wasn't my video. That was Gopher Sports. In fairness,
true. But it was there, and they called and they said, "Hey, we saw you. We saw part of your head on TV." But they're like, most people probably didn't know it was you because we know you and we know.
See,
besides the face,
when Wells shows up, it's Nate Wells.
I thought Nate Wells was on TV.
If Giles was on it, people wouldn't know because
you weren't.
No one points me out that I'm on TV.
I would point.
It would probably. It would again be Drew and my folks and like friends and family and that's it. Yeah,
all those New Yorkers.
That's always the fun thing. I had that. I'll have that like twice a year. So like I'll run into somebody who I haven't talked to in a few years and just always trying to explain freelance work is never fun. Never a fun job.
Can't say I know that.
Oh, Drew, you'll enjoy. No, you get to sit.
Drew's going straight to zone coverage. He's getting a six-figure salary right out of college.
Drew, where can everyone find your work? And I'm going to say, you had a great front A1 cover story this week, the Minnesota Daily. So
yeah, that was a lot of fun. The Don Lucia stuff was up there. I believe the Bob Motzko stuff was we publish on Thursdays, and the announcement happened on Thursday, so I wrote the article that day, so it didn't go in the paper, but
it was up there. I got the paper. I got the Daily.
What would it be like?
It was there.
That's that. Yeah. Okay, that was the announcement story. Yes, but the introductory presser story was not. But it was, you can find me at the Minnesota Daily. If that's the publication I'm talking about, find me there. Find me online there. You can find me on Twitter at Cove Drew. Declan just found the tweet. I'm going to hold off.
Oh, no, finish your thing, because I think it's perfect to end with this tweet.
Okay.
To bookend
We'll hold
the
it off.
Motzko talk.
All right. So, you can find me at Minnesota Daily. I will not. I don't believe I'll be covering the Frozen Four this weekend. Just the way it works with I guess just covering stuff. A little too busy sometimes with other stuff, so not going to be able to do the Frozen Four.
You also had a good article on travel and softball.
Yeah, that was a really fun one to write. A lot of people might be surprised to know how much the softball team travels, but in talking with them, you should go read the full article. But in talking with them, it's status quo for them. So they were talking about it, saying, you know what, it's not that big a deal to us.
And
that
it has
kind of
to be
thing.
28 degrees to play a game.
It's a Big Ten policy. I got a comment from
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, I got a comment from the pitching coach the other day, and some of us were talking. I think someone from Channel 5 was there too, and we were talking. We were like, is it like just illegal per like NCAA rules? I scoured through the NCAA rule book, and nothing's there about temperature. And she said it was a Big Ten policy, so I'm going in that it's a Big Ten policy.
Why wouldn't it be 32
See, that was my
Exactly.
question. That was my question.
I do not know. I'll have to call someone at the Big Ten and find out why.
Can you imagine it's like in the middle of an inning and stop? We're at 27 degrees.
So it was. It's not 27 or not 28 real degrees. It's 28 real field degrees.
Oh, that is a difference.
So
huge difference.
If you didn't notice why I wasn't live tweeting Sundays, because the game was canceled, because the real field it was like 30-some degrees, but the real field was like 10. So they couldn't start the game. They postponed it from noon to 2 and then 2 to 3, and then they just canceled it because Illinois had to get home. So they're just that game was canceled. That's why they moved Saturday's game to Friday as a doubleheader. They had to delay the second game of the doubleheader to be, I think, 15 minutes late, because it was 27 it felt like 27 when they wanted to start it, and they waited 10 minutes and they checked it and it was 29, and then they could start. But they can't stop it in the middle of the game. So as long as it's that temperature when you start, you go straight through it. So
sounds miserable no matter what.
And you can actually check out on the front, below the fold on the daily that came out today. My story on that. Amber Pfizer, she's the de facto ace pitcher this year. She threw a no hitter in the first game, but she pitched in both games of the doubleheader. So she pitched 104 times. Sorry, I gotta mention this because this is incredible.
You're good.
She pitched 104. She threw 104 pitches in the first game. Half an hour later, she came back and started the next game. Pitched 6 innings. Pitched 6 innings with 69 pitches. I mean,
nice.
Literally, yeah. But from a span from 1 o'clock to 5:30, in 4.5 hours, she threw 173 pitches.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
And
That's
I've
nuts.
learned this from it's more conducive to do this style of pitching than it
Then
is
MLB. Yeah,
MLB.
but still, like
You're saying
guys
more
think-
conducive
you gotta
to
think,
injuries?
like,
What's that?
You're saying more conducive to injuries.
No, I'm saying more
it's like
conducive
it-
to continue to
it
do it
works
like for a longer
easier.
period of time.
Oh,
It's
gotcha.
less strain.
So
believe it or not.
that's my question. What's like? So it's usually 100 pitches, right? In baseball,
yeah,
what's
she's gotten up there in pitches. She pitches a few complete games. That was her first no hitter.
But I mean, can you throw? Is 170 typical? I don't even know. I don't have a reference.
No,
Okay.
out of I think it's because their games, softball games, are 7 innings long. And,
Yeah.
I mean, especially the second game, she was getting out of innings with 10 pitches roughly. I mean, you compare that to you see Jose Barrios.
Yeah,
on Sunday.
yeah.
It was like, comparatively that kind of performance where she didn't. She pitched a lot more pitches because she got. The
striking
count.
out people.
She was striking out people, so the counts were going higher. She was getting a lot more pitches, but she didn't allow a hit in the first game. She allowed 3 in the second, which is, a 3-hitter through 13 innings of play and 174 pitches. That's. Go check out the article because it was pretty impressive the way they played on Friday. But yeah, check me out there. I cover softball now. I'll cover any breaking hockey stuff that might come out. Who knows?
Which will come out
Who knows?
tomorrow.
Tuesday. It's like that. It's like you guys ever see? This is really nerdy, but Star Trek Generations with Alan Ruck, Ferris Bueller's best friend.
No, but
Cameron.
that guy for sure is
He
in
was
there.
he was a captain, and everything came. They needed to go do something, but nothing arrived. All the stuff on the ship didn't arrive till Tuesday. It's a very inside joke to me.
Yeah.
But
I like how he's seen that, not Space Jam.
Yeah, I was gonna
sorry,
say.
that's me. I'm a Star Trek guy.
Have you seen Ferris Bueller?
I have. Oh yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Oh yeah, I've seen Ferris Bueller.
And I was going to
so-
say the new Star Trek, the feature films are good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys see
But
that.
yes, the news will probably happen on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I legitimately don't know anything, but I'm guessing the news will happen on Tuesday, just based on past history. Declan,
So I wasn't even a month off. I was like 2 weeks before the Air Force loss. I tweeted this, and I was piggybacking off what Judd Zolgad said of 1500. He said, I think Bob will say no thanks to the Gopher job. Case to be made, he has a better job right now. So I piggybacked off that, and I said, no way, Bob. Abandon ship for the U or any other college program unless the NHL comes calling. Bob is cemented as SCSU as much as the red carpet is on Fifth Avenue. So I March 3rd.
that's a bold stance.
It's retweeted. It's at the top of my
It's a bold
timeline
strategy,
now.
Colin. Let's see if it pays off.
It's
There you go.
there it is. I'm sure Judd and I are now going to be eating our words, and Big Ten Mistake is eating this up just like they were their first girlfriends and everything else. So
All right. So everyone can find that tweet at
Dex tweets.
At Dex's tweets.
no underscore DEX.
DEX. S.
Declan, where else can we find you? This has
Yes.
changed since the last
Oh,
podcast.
it
It has, yeah.
I'm,
For the better, definitely.
Minnesota Hockey Magazine's where you can find most of my stuff right now. So helping out over there. And other than that, just kind of kicking tires and annoying Schreier and trying to take his job away for
Potentially producing for the Zone Coverage Podcast Network that I guess we can't promote on our own podcast because no one knows who Giles is, according
Well,
to our coach.
I know who Giles is.
I'm happy.
I'm glad you do.
I'm reviewing that.
I'm the young
he,
demographic.
he said that to his face. It was so bold.
No, so here's the thing. It's you say Giles like he is on the show regularly.
Oh, no, Giles has never been on the show. Was Giles on the show?
He
Giles
was
was on the show.
Like
Yeah,
Chris
no,
Eckes
yeah.
was a
he was
a guest.
no,
He's
so
going back and
until
listen to
that, no, but you've said it throughout the entire year. Without saying Giles and the Goalie podcast on the Zone Coverage Podcast Network, which I think would be a great thing to promote. And Giles is great,
Oh, whoa! He's throwing it back at
which
me.
I think would be great. But you say it always in a way that you just assume that somebody coming in for the first time also knows Giles,
levels.
or he is regularly like third chair or whatever. But even then, like I think it's like I think it would help just to say Giles and the Goalie, or just the point out that we have another podcast. And sometimes you do it, but that was all I was trying to say.
Fair point. It's a good point.
I appreciate anyone
I'm gonna
listening
have to
that came from the Giles and the Goalie
break down
podcast.
the language of my contract I signed by the end of the week here. I gotta make sure I'm having my lawyer review it. I'm making sure everything is appropriate.
We're gonna have his lawyer review it.
By the way, so Drew Clausen already I tweeted out your tweet as well. He wrote his old takes explodes care about college hockey because
Damn it.
I had the same thought. So
Former daily writers / college hockey writers unite.
Great. Thank God.
He's not a former college. He's
Oh,
still
that's good.
current college hockey writer.
he's still there. Let's look up the weekend.
The first Drew to hold.
Yeah, the first
to
Drew.
hold my current position.
Yeah, as one of the many Drews and Danes and
Yes,
Bens and Megans and Betsy's. I'm just basically naming
Exactly.
everyone who's like written on that
exactly.
on the beat. But no, Tom.
If Ben Goetz is listening to this podcast, I'd love a follow back.
Okay, I will get you that follow.
I've never met him, but
You've never met him. Okay.
I really feel like I need the follow back.
Ben is a good follow.
I've heard a lot
He's-
about Ben
okay.
Goetz, and I've heard that he's definitely a good person to know.
He is a good person. For people who do not know who he is, he was a former
Sports editor at the Daily.
He was a former sports editor at the Daily. He had Drew's job. He's now in Las Vegas covering soccer.
He is. He's
So-
covering the Las Vegas Lights. Is that what they're called?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we'll have that. Tom, what is on the podcast network this week?
Oh, we got tons of fun stuff. We were, as I said, live from Tin Whiskers, Mr.
You were.
Nate Wells.
I was on that podcast.
That's when he said straight up to Giles' face, "You're not famous." That was dead serious. You
Giles
guys
is
can
famous
listen
to
it.
me, and I
Giles-
represent the 18 to 25 demographic. don't I?
Honestly, you represent all of America, all that's
Really?
good in
Last
America.
time I-
I'm glad.
I'm not even going to do it. Go
do
ahead.
it, go.
I
go.
was just gonna say the last time I hung out with Giles was like the first time he didn't have a beer in his hand.
Yeah, no,
we were
it's
covering
true.
girls hockey, so that was the last time I actually.
Oh,
usually I
right.
see him with beer in hand. I came up to him pretty drunk at the end of a wild game at Reed's.
Oh,
earlier
Giles
this
was
year.
pretty lit during this Tin Whiskers podcast.
Pretty lit. Wow. I mean, he's going with. Shoot, what'd you say earlier? That was really D's. D's.
Oh, my God.
No, Tom. It's
Youth correspondent Drew Cove. Is,
OMG. Whatever, Tom. Whatever, Tom.
Tom, continue. What else is on?
Yeah, we got Giles and the
lit.
goalie. Minnesota.
It is. It's legit lit, Tom. Say that 3 times fast.
Okay.
The NFL draft's coming up, right?
Yeah, NFL draft's coming up. We probably should, or we will have a live party for that using the football machine. That show is Wednesday. We have the Minnesota Soccer podcast out there. They got frozen out by Atlanta, which is not good. And then we were live from Mackenzie Pub right before the Tin Whiskers show.
And Twins just started. You got a couple.
We got
a couple baseball.
We
stuff
got so we got Brandon Warren is doing Locked On Twins. That's every day, and then he is going to do some long form stuff with Midwest Swing. That's his other show.
All right.
Thank you, Nate. You're setting me up. Teeing me up.
All right.
He's humble.
I'll help. I'm helping you out. I'm helping you out here. I figure like we should do a little bit more there. Just be a little honest.
I love it. We're thrown down.
Yeah,
Nate,
that's that.
where can we find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Gopher State.
Step back.
I'm on Facebook at Nate Wells Writes Hockey. I can be in several different places writing. I'll be covering the Frozen Four this week for The Athletic.
Oh God, no!
You people are welcome for your ears.
Yes. And I tried to put all my radio and podcast and writing all on the Gopher Hockey blog, which is the gopherhockeyblog.blogspot.com. I think I had a nice little thing there last week on Casey Middlestat and just his thoughts on college hockey and everything.
You can hear him on WCCO, NPR.
I was on NPR last week.
Howard,
I was on
Bob FM.
I do a regular college hockey spot on WCCO as well, and I've been doing some radio stuff from other cities too, which has been really fun to do.
New York, Boston, Philadelphia.
It's
Washington D.C.
It's a little different than having the time of the podcast, but I really enjoy it. And thanks to everyone who is giving me the opportunity for that too. What do we all? I guess before we go, what do we think is going to break between now and when we record next week?
Suitors put. Oh wait,
no, that was
That's a low blow.
that was the last podcast we were both on together.
But I wouldn't be surprised if some of the audience on this podcast appreciates that.
Yes.
I just got to say a note. You gotta go full John McEnroe next time with the "you could not be serious" line when next time Nate mentions the Athletic.
The Athletic. Hey, you know what? If anyone needs a good deal to subscribe, I can get one there.
No,
Perfect time.
Stop. I was giving you a
Richard Deitch is now on the Athletic.
All right.
Okay. What do you think? What do you think breaks between now and next week when we record?
I'm gonna think it's assistant coaches.
Assistant coaches.
St. Cloud.
Yeah, Frank Serratori to St. Cloud.
Yeah.
St. Cloud.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
All right.
Declan Goff.
Tom, what do you want a real one or is
I'm dead serious.
Okay.
I was correct about that. That's factual.
You were, yeah. And they announced, I think, while recording this or right before that he's out for the season.
Yep.
So, this one for sure will happen. National champion, or maybe something weird will happen. The Frozen Four, where all the Notre Dame players end up trying to go to St. Paul, Kansas, or whatever. I don't know, whatever.
That'd be great.
The WCHA reforms.
Yes. Well, you know what? If any of those things happen between now and next week, we'll be sure to talk about them on the next edition of That Gopher Hockey Podcast. For Drew, for Tom, for Declan, I am Nate. Until next week, enjoy the Frozen Four. Enjoy everyone on college hockey coming to this town. And we will see you at the rink.
Introduction of the ugly duckling. We're here to blister Mr. Microphone. When you put one in, gonna get it.